Hunting is as old as man. History tells us that our primitive ancestors depended on it for survival, and that later it became an essential part of knighthood, chivalry, and nobility. Today, hunting is a pleasant hobby, a sport, a kind of training in patience and endurance, an exciting pastime. Falconry is one of the pleasures of the desert, particularly enjoyable in the prairies of Kuwait. In the autumn of every year, hawks travel in flocks from the colder regions of the world in search of a more congenial climate. In Kuwait, this is the best season of the year. The weather is cool and refreshing, and one can escape the clamor of daily life, the hubbub of city and machine. Our job now is to hunt the falcon, our prospective agent for hunting bustards. A crow with bait is tied to the end of a string stretching out from a little hut, and a paruh, the local name for a hunter, lurks in the hut, which is actually nothing more than a mud-roofed hole dug in the sand, about 1 square meter in size, with several openings in the roof. There are 2 more ropes in the hut. The thicker one is attached to the net or trap. The thinner one leads to a pigeon firmly tied to the other end. The hunter buries the trap under the sand. A rope to which is tied a live pigeon placed in a covered hole. This is the axis of the trap, its center of gravity. By pulling the rope, the hunter draws both the decoy and the prey into the middle of the net. Having placed the pigeon in its hole, the hunter returns to his hut. To attract the attention of the falcons, the hunter pulls the rope holding the crow, which flies around dangling the feather bait. Its call is a signal to the hunter that a hawk is approaching. The hunter pulls the rope attached to the pigeon, making it glide through the air to attract the hawk's attention. The hawk, seeing its prey, swoops down upon it. The hunter in his hut begins to draw in the rope gradually until both the pigeon and the hawk are caught in the middle of the net, entangling the falcon. The hunter slips out of his control room to untie the falcon. the falcon should do harm to itself thrashing around, it has to be swaddled. Its legs are tied together with strings attached to the swaddling cloth. A few stitches are made with a needle and thread to close the falcon's eyes. Then the swaddling cloth is removed. But the falcon is now our captive, incapable of flight because it cannot see. This is an essential step which must precede the falcon's training. At this point, the hunter either tries to sell the bird or hands it over to a trainer who gives it a name, then teaches it to listen to calls and to obey every command. And so training begins. The falcon's hood is removed and he is taught to fetch a piece of meat a short distance away. The falcon's hood must go back on before the ropes are replaced by longer ones. Another stage of training begins when the meat is replaced by a dead buster. To separate the falcon from its prey, he begins to conceal the prey under his dishdasha, the traditionally Kuwaiti dress. He does this to obviate the falcon's excitement and attacks. Long-distance training with dead bustards continues for a while, then it's time for live bustards. With astounding speed, the falcon swoops down on its prey. This is the last stage of its training, and it's now ready to go hunting. The hunters erect their camp. Having sipped coffee and made merry for some length of time, they disperse over the prairie in the morning light. The falcons haven't eaten for 3 or 4 days, and this has whetted their appetite for the hunt. The hunters divide up into groups, each equipped with a car, a number of falcons, and a guide. Now let's follow one of these groups. We've arrived at the border of a hunting area. The car comes to a halt, the hoods are removed, and much noise is made to frighten the bustards into moving just enough to reveal its presence to the falcon. But we soon find to our disappointment that it has not yet sighted anything. So back on with the hoods and off to another hunting ground. Here we are in a new area. We remove the hoods once again, and our voices, eager with the hope of a good hunt, will release the falcon and then he sees the bustard and off he goes, which often flies as far as 3 or 4 kilometers in search of its prey. Soon it lands close to the shooting area. We follow it, our eyes searching everywhere. There it is, a bustard wincing at the sight of the falcon, its arch enemy. The terrified bird tries to escape, but the falcon is on the alert. It will frustrate any attempt. Flight is impossible. A swift pursuit and the victim is brought back to the ground. A short battle ensues. At this moment, the bird in self-defense secretes a gummy liquid with which it attempts to spatter the falcon and imprison its wings. However, more often than not, the falcon skillfully wards off this attack. Certainly, the battle is unequal. As usual, it's the hawk which emerges victorious. Now the hunter must slay the fowl with his knife, thus rendering it too fit to be eaten in accordance with Islamic precepts. The hawk is then released, and a new hunt begins. The hawk seems to have caught sight of something. Let's see what it is. The prey looks as though it intends to face the challenge. This is another way of hunting. The bustard stays in its hiding place. The hawk takes off from the hunter's hand. But this time the prey is strong and stubborn. The hawk swoops down upon the bustard, strikes fiercely with its claws, and soars into the air again. And the battle seems to last longer. But the hawk is assured of victory. This process is repeated until the decisive moment for attack has arrived. travel on. Something looms up against the horizon, something which looks unfamiliar. Then we recognize it to be the falcon's formidable enemy, the eagle. It is the hunter's turn to resort to their shotguns to kill the dangerous challenger and clear the sky again for our falcons. The time has come to rest. The scattered groups converge towards a meeting point formally agreed upon. Here for 3 or 4 hours before setting out again. As usual, the hawk leads us to the home ground of its prospective prey. We follow it and see it dive to the ground and begin looking around. We soon discover the spot. It is thrown with bustards taking shelter under the desert bushes. This is where our shotguns play their role. The day is drawing to a close. It's time to return to the camp and clean the fowl. The coolness of the weather preserves the game in good condition. The hunters exchange a little conversation before going to bed with a pleasant thought of tomorrow's efforts and triumphs in the desert.